The book says that something remarkable happened with Thoreau after he came back from Canada. This is the wife of Henry David Thoreau. What Thoreau did just after returning from Canada defies calculation or explanation. For 3 more weeks he continued to use the journal as he had nearly 10 years as a writer's workbook. This is about journaling, the ultimate journaling. But on November 8, 1850, he wrote up everything he noticed and thought during his daily walk as one long entry. This is the ultimate in journaling and mindfulness. But like I said, on November 8, 1850, he wrote up everything he noticed and thought during his daily walk as one long entry, remarkable. He opened how quiet everything is this time of year, as if it were waiting for winter. So he's journaling about the quiet. Okay. Just read the book and stop commenting. The next day he did the same, this time concentrating on seeing the landscape through layers of memory, as if to look around were to look back into time. Then 2 days later, writing all this up must have taken the intervening day. He did it a third time. Quote, I am attracted by a fence made of white pine roots, unquote, he opened, filling pages with a stream of consciousness flow of words as if he were writing while walking. Quote, I pluck, I heard, I saw yesterday, I notice, unquote. Again on the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, when he wrote a huge entry on how to see the smallest rill, as if it were the Orinoco or the Mississippi. Remember the big river in Africa? You're familiar with it from Nature Channel. And how to write about seeing in this odd new way. Thoreau's new experiment made the very act of writing visible on the page, as if I were to tell you about the warmth of a May afternoon seeping through my open window as I type these words, even interruptions. Quote, somebody shut the cat's tail in the door just now, and she made such a cat wail as has driven 2 whole worlds out of my mind, unquote. But soon Thoreau had his, quote, 2 whole worlds, unquote, back, for he continued for more pages. The next day he did it again, 2 days later again, and again, and again. And this is what truly staggers the mind from this point. Thoreau did not stop doing this, ever. Not until dying. And almost too weak to hold a pen, he crafted one final entry. Until November 7th, 1850, he had treated the date as incidental. Starting on November 8th, 1850, he treated the day and the date as essential to his artistry. The date and what he could write of his day on that one day is no longer incidental to some larger quest. It is the quest. Virtually every day, from then through the end of his life, with few exceptions, Thoreau wrote a dated entry that explored whatever caught his mind that day. Whereas before he had scissored out entire chunks of his journal, sometimes leaving little behind but ribbons and fragments. From then on he cut out very little, and soon he would cut out nothing at all, carefully preserving each journal volume intact. In short, without announcing it, Thoreau simply stopped using his journal as the means to the, quote, real, unquote, work of art somewhere else, and started treating the journal itself as the work of art, with all the integrity that art demands, or perhaps all the integrity that science demands. In this new mode, his journal volumes were something like a scientific notebook's laboratory reports whose value lay precisely in their regularity and completeness. Reorienting his writing required reorienting the pattern of his daily life. Thoreau's new protocol required a high degree of focus and discipline, for its value depended on consistency. Going out every day and every day pressing language to find something new to see, making studies noted on early biographer, quote, as carefully and habitually as he noted the angles and distances in surveying a conquered farm, unquote. Thoreau developed the practice of walking with pencil and paper and scribbling notes on the spot. Brief names and phrases that he wrote up the following morning in long, often lyrical journal entries, sometimes when he got packed up and writing out 2 or 3 days' worth at a time, then setting out that afternoon for another 3 or 4-hour walk. Quote, in the forenoon, commonly I see nature only through a window. In the afternoon, my study or apartment in which I sit is a veil, unquote. He wrote in October 1851, after the experiment had become routine. Sometimes he varied it, walking abroad in the morning and writing in the afternoon. Sometimes he unsettled his senses by walking before dawn and staying out well past midnight. But he must go out, he told Channing, every day to see what he had caught in his traps set for facts. As Emerson remarked, quote, the length of his walk uniformly made the length of his writing. So if you want to write a lot, you have to walk a lot. Thoreau usually walked alone, but often Channing came along, though Thoreau could be impatient. Quote, in our walk, C takes out his notebook sometimes and tries to write as I do, but all in vain. He soon puts it up again, or contents himself with scrawling some sketch of the landscape. Observing me still scribbling, he will say that he confines himself to the ideal, purely ideal remarks. He leaves the facts to me, unquote. Channing's criticism pushed Thoreau to articulate what he wanted with those heaps of, quote, facts, not mere data, but, quote, material to the mythology which I am writing, unquote, or more largely, quote, facts which the mind perceived, thoughts which the body thought with these ideal, unquote. Thoreau's walks became a form of meditation, a spiritual as well as physical discipline. He worried about walking bodily into the woods without getting there in spirit. Some piece of business in his mind literally blinding his eyes. Quote, I am not where my body is. I am out of my senses. In my walks, I would return to my senses like a bird or beast. What business have I in the woods if I am thinking of something outside of the woods? Animal minds become a model for him. He strove to walk like a fox, mind and senses wholly open. As he said of a muskrat, quote, while I am looking at him, I am thinking what he is thinking of me. He is a different sort of man, that is all, unquote. On November 26th, Thoreau walked through the drizzle and mist and melting of early snow to sit down with a group of Penobscot Indians camped in tents on the river, just as he had done with the French-Canadian family a few weeks before in their farmhouse on the banks of the St. Lawrence River. So now did he sit with this family in their home on the banks of the Concord, asking them questions and recording their answers. "How do you live?" questioned he asked. "How do you hunt, cook, make canoes, boil water, cradle your children?" As they showed him, he wrote down their words. Quote, Kinogan, or Papuskin cradle, Jaborgon, or sled, which we get our word toboggan. And for the first time he drew the things they showed him on the journal page. Quote, "The pencil is the best of eyes," unquote. Said Louis Agassiz, who drew at the blackboard during his popular lectures. The books on Indians Thoreau was taking notes from were full of drawings too, and Thoreau had started to copy them. Now sitting down with the penobscot, the tents holding off the November drizzle, he's seeing not just with his eyes, but with his ears and hands as well. What Thoreau couldn't carry away in his notebooks, he often carried away in his pockets. Thus it was that the Yellow House attic became a kind of material memory, the place that held and preserved his expanding mental universe. Notebooks, journal volumes, books, maps, charts, tables, natural history specimens, and curiosities. The townspeople started to bring him things, too. In December 1849, a neighbor, annoyed by a large hawk killing his hens, shot it out of the sky. But instead of tossing the carcass into the woods to rot, he brought it to Thoreau. He threw it over to Thoreau. Thoreau. What Thoreau did next was also remarkable. He brought it to the Boston Society of Natural History to show Samuel Cabot, the brother of James Elliott Cabot, their curator of birds. Remarkable indeed, agreed Cabot. It was a rare and beautiful American goshawk. Thoreau's donation allowed Cabot to settle the controversy. It was clearly a new species, unique to America, and not, as Audubon had claimed, the same as the European goshawk. Cabot skinned the bird, now officially a scientific specimen, dissected and measured it, preserved the remains in alcohol, and stuffed the skin. It occurred to Emerson that Thoreau was providing a real service to the town. Indeed, every town needed someone like Thoreau. A practical naturalist on the par with the village doctor or layer who could be provided with microscope and telescope, and who in return would answer the questions, what bird is this? What hyla? What caterpillar? Rather like a park ranger. We read about how Thoreau was the town park ranger. And he kept his journal. We started out talking about his journaling, keeping a diary, and his mindfulness, journaling, mindfulness, and walking. So it's about walking, journaling, and mindfulness. Very interesting. From Laura Dassow Walls, A Life, Henry David Thoreau. Ending on page 306.